agreement that was signed before they came into government. He said the university lecturers cannot continue to dictate to government how their salaries should be paid. And following 30 days ultimatum, the Nigerian Labour Congress gave to the federal government to respond to the demands of Academic Staff Union of Universities and the threat by the union to embark on a 3-day nationwide warning strike should the federal government fail to comply to the stalemate. Margaret Okunola in this special report takes a look at the effect of perennial closure of universities in the country and the way out of this impasse.
The tussle between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities has been on for over 3 months now. Demands by the body include funding of the revitalization of public universities, earned academic allowances and university transparency accountability solution, promotion arrears. Others are the renegotiation of 2009 ASU federal government agreement and the inconsistency in integrated personnel payroll information system, among others. Following the going back and forth between the duo, the National Association of Nigerian Students recently issued a threat that the leading political parties in the country will not be allowed to hold their primaries if the schools are not reopened. Student groups also mobilized protests across major campuses in the country to further press home their demands. This is really affecting as there is no end in sight.
ASU and the government should get their acts together and rise up to the challenge, sort things out so that we can continue from there, we can move on. The world is not waiting for us.
Once the strike is on, the section will be postponed, will be shifted forward, in which it shouldn't be so. It will affect their service as well. I mean, NYSC.
The industrial action, according to some people, has also been seen to be the cause of many crimes among youths.
When these children are not in school, they are engaged by something outside the school. And we are talking of criminality in this country. Is the government helping in curbing this criminality or adding more to it?
So the exodus of our Nigerians, let's think about then, that means something is fishy. So our government is not looking at that data. But how many of us will have money to allow our students to go and study?
Tell me which Minister of Education have we had in this country that didn't come out of ASU? Whether in the past or in the present. Many of those that we have had running the educational system have always been products of ASU. So how come you become a minister and you now begin to fight the same organization that kind of brought you to the limelight? So these are issues which I think we need to begin to resolve internally. ASU too needs to begin to find a way of relating with the government, ensuring that they become a pressure group with the government to ensure that the best amongst them run some of our educational institutions, run some of our universities.
In a recent development, about 3 other bodies, which include the Non-Academic Staff Union, NASU, the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, and the National Association of Academic Technologists, all in the Nigerian university setting, have joined the strike in solidarity with ASU. This generated more interest from the public, stakeholders and union leaders. The Ogun State chairman of Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Emmanuel Bankole, outrightly condemned the action while appealing to the government to do the needful.
From NFC, what the leadership has done is to give the federal government 30 days within which to attend to the matter or to be forced to go on a 3 days warning strike. If after that nothing happens, we will take another drastic action. We hope they will not push us to that. So that's where we are now.
Comrade Emmanuel Bankole said it is pertinent that urgent and utmost attention be given to the education sector for proper grooming of future leaders. Margaret Okunola, OGTV News.
In an effort to reduce the level of insecurity in the country, the Nigerian Railway Corporation, NRC, says passengers will be required to provide their national identity number, NIN, before boarding trains from the month of May. The move is to improve profiling of passengers and rail riders' safety following the recent attack on Kaduna-bound train. In this special report, Sheyi Alao met with Nigerians to discuss the positives of the decision.
Nigeria is faced with unprecedented waves of security challenges, and this has led to loss of lives and properties in the country. The attack on Kaduna-bound train from Abuja on March 28 by armed bandits is one of the such occurrences in recent times. According to reports, the incident left at least 8 persons dead and others kidnapped or missing. However, as part of effort to protect people living in the country from further attacks on railway, the Nigerian government has announced that passengers without national identification number won't be permitted to board train anywhere in the country.
Every idea to ensure that the whole citizenry is safe is welcome. Because the way things are now, it's like our security architecture is overwhelmed by the quantum of challenges that we have.
It's a good development in the sense that it will give room for adequate information about individual and for safety. It will work in line with that.
Nigerians, however, believe this is one of the steps the government has to take to protect railway from further threats and danger.
What other things I think is very, very vital is the availability of this NIN in terms of the registrations, in terms of getting it done as soon as possible. I'm sure there's going to be changes.
What will need to be done is that we don't just say it without putting any action into it. There are some things that will be necessary. There are some logistics that must be provided before this can work. In other climes, you discover that they spent a huge amount of their budget, I mean the railway system budget, to ensure that security is provided. So I think the same thing should be applicable here.
They also urge everyone to support the government by registering for the NIN.
When we have actually witnessed some people complaining about NIN when their lines were blocked. Well, this thing also, the government has given enough time for people to get registered. But as Nigerians, we don't do things until the last minute.
It's not the work for the government alone. It is for everybody. We need, first of all, to sanitize our society.
The Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, says almost 90 million Nigerians have enrolled for the National Identification Number, an increase from the 79 million that registered in January 2021. Sheyi Alao, OGTV News.
The Speaker of the Ogun State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Olakunle Oluomo, has challenged Freelance and Independent Broadcasters Association of Nigeria, FIBAN, to sustain the legacies of their founding fathers through the restructuring of broadcast contents to further address societal ills, promote culture and morals for a better society. Honorable Oluomo gave the charge during the 2022 week of the Ogun State chapter of the association held in Abeokuta. Details of the event are presented in this package.
Freelance and Independent Broadcasters of Nigeria, otherwise known as FIBAN, is the body that oversees the affairs of broadcasters that are not permanently employed by any broadcasting organization. Recently, Ogun State chapter of the association had its year 2022 week in Abeokuta, where members and leaders of the association convened to brainstorm on the solutions to challenges facing their members and also look for a way to sustain the legacies of their founding fathers. In his keynote address, Speaker of the Ogun State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Olakunle Oluomo, represented by the Director of Information in the Assembly, Mr. Jamiu Lawal, extolled the virtues of late Toba Opaleye, Benga Deboye, Kola Olawi, and a host of others, saying the state and the entire broadcast industry in the nation had lost icons. The speaker equally challenged them to improve on their creative capacity through multitasking and versatility.
The trio of Toba Opaleye, Benga Adeboye, and Kola Olawi were exceptionally outstanding in creativity, versatility, good command of language and presentation on air compartments through compliance, with specialization in presentation, but very distinct in terms of their program philosophy.
Incumbent and National President FIBAN, Comrades Desmond Inwashuku and Yemi Shonde, said the event was put together to immortalize the late progenitors of the association, whose works were being referenced even in the academia, adding that broadcasters remained opinion molders, whose presentations must be geared towards ensuring attitudinal change in the society.
Benga Deboye, Toba Opaleye were not the only people who were broadcasters, but why have we continuously celebrated them year in year? Because of the quantum of investment they made in human beings.
For whatever reason, even if it's a 1 hour program or 30 minutes, we should learn to make impact in the life of the younger ones coming, to have an access to knowledge.
While speaking on the topic risk and challenges for public media practitioners in the face of economic and social pressure, Mr. Shogun Showumi outlined administrative bottlenecks, proliferation of broadcast outfits, social pressure and politics as issues affecting the practice of freelance broadcasting in the country.
Still to come on the news, United Nations calls on government as the public holiday declared by the federal government to celebrate Eid al-Fitr entered the second and the final day. Fun seekers thronged fun sports and relaxation centers in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. Ronke Hadiemi, who visited some joints, reports that the hike in the cost of goods and services did not deter people from coming out to enjoy themselves.
This year's Eid al-Fitr comes amid a hike in global food prices, which affected the tempo of the celebration, as many were forced to celebrate low-key. However, this was not enough to deter fun seekers who were determined to enjoy the long holiday, which started from the previous weekend. Faithfuls recognized the importance of Ramadan as one of the important pillars of Islam.
In the Muslim calendar, Ramadan is the best month in the Muslim calendar. So it's just a celebration that, alhamdulillah, I have the grace to make it this year.
They describe the Eid al-Fitr holiday as a moment to relax, hence the visit to new and exciting places to have fun.
Yes, I'm not staying in Ogun State anymore. I'm from Abuja. So me and my family, my husband and my children, we just come to have fun. Because the fasting even teaches us to come together in peace, in harmony and love. So we are celebrating for the 30 days.
We chose something fun like this because we have to celebrate and we have to be happy. You know, today is a very special day and we just have to celebrate.
Respondents also urged individuals, irrespective of their religious inclinations, to love unconditionally.
I greet all of us that congratulations for the 30 days. That is not easy being fasting for good 30 days. And all what prophets told us to do and what he said we should not do. We should not go back to all the don'ts. We should try and be love and stay in peace. We should love our neighbor and be together.
Celebration is, it shouldn't just be the time of celebration. Like, we should celebrate ourselves often and often, as fast as we can, like to show love to one another, just to make the world a better place for everyone to live.
For Muslims out there is just that, let's not say because Ramadan has gone, we should just take care of our iman, like our faith. So let us go back to things that are bad, that we have left in the month of Ramadan. Let's just take care of our faith and be good, have fun, Eid Mubarak.
They further asserted that although the holy month of Ramadan has passed, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad still remains and should be adhered to in the coming months. Aderonke Adeyemi, OGTV News.
The United Nations has called on various governments to respect the rights and protect journalists and media workers in their respective countries. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres made the call in his message to commemorate this year's World Press Freedom Day tagged Journalism Under Digital Siege. He stressed the need to shine a spotlight on the essential work of journalists and other media workers who seek transparency and accountability from those in power, often at great personal risk. According to the UN scribe, media workers in war zones are threatened not only by bombs and bullets, but by the weapons of falsification and disinformation that accompany modern warfare. He is worried that such persons could be attacked as the enemy, accused of espionage, detained or killed simply for doing their job. Digital technology, Guterres stated, has also made censorship even easier, as many journalists and editors around the world were at constant risk of their programs and reports being taken offline, stressing that digital technology creates new channels for oppression and abuse. He lamented that women journalists were at particular risk of online harassment and violence. In a related development, as the world celebrates Press Freedom Day, Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun has saluted the courage being displayed by the media workers in ensuring that the society is rightly informed. Governor Abiodun, who also described journalists as the bastion of democracy, said the world has been a better place through accurate and objective reportage by media practitioners. In a statement by his chief press secretary, Kunle Shumori, the governor noted that though media workers work in hostile environment in some countries, they've been able to discharge their duties of informing, educating, entertaining, and setting agenda for development and growth, while recalling that media play a pivotal role in making sure Nigeria returned to democracy in 1999. The governor submitted that the country owes its uninterrupted democratic role to the media that has kept public office holders on their toes. He said media, as the fourth estate of the realm, would continue to be accorded a pride of place in his administration. Governor Abiodun, who charged media practitioners not to derail from performing their constitutional and social responsibility, equally tasked them on the need to ensure accurate and objective reportage. The governor further charged the media practitioners not to allow themselves to be used to destabilize or heat up the polity. According to him, efforts must be stepped up by the media practitioners to tackle fake news vendors and abstain from propaganda capable of truncating the security and peace of the country. He either reiterated that his administration would continue to create conducive atmosphere for the media to thrive and discharge their duties without fear or favor. Meanwhile, as the world marks the World Press Freedom Day on the 3rd of May, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, NGE, has said that the inalienable right to access and disseminate information through an independent press is under attack in Nigeria. The body of editors called for urgent need to protect the media, adding that democracy is in danger when a free press is threatened. In a press statement signed by the NGE's President Mustafa Isa and General Secretary Yobusa Iwegware to mark the World Press Freedom Day, the professional group of all the editors in Nigeria said that while the threat to the media freedom in Nigeria is real, the impact on the state of democracy in the country will be very dangerous if not checked. The Guild said that its members are concerned that elected leaders in Nigeria, who should be dependable press freedom protectors, have made several overt attempts to silence the media through proposed legislations that clearly seek to criminalize journalism practice in the country. The editors added that apart from the regular attacks on journalists carrying out their legitimate editorial assignments by overzealous security agents. The country attempts to criminalize journalism practice in the country through obnoxious proposed law that will suffocate economic, environment, and hardship political and economic policies of the federal government. And they should have it in the past years and made it almost impossible for the media sector to carry out their constitutional responsibility for the benefit of the citizens. The NGE added that there is urgent need to protect the media because the impact of the suffocating economic and political environment being created by the government will be very dangerous to our democracy. A threat to the media will be a threat to our democracy. And joining us to further look at the issue of press freedom, especially in Nigeria, is the head of Department of Mass Communication at the Olabisi Onabanjo University, OOU, Agoiwe, Professor Dele Odolami. Prof, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Wale. I'm not a professor yet. I'm a doctor, associate professor.
All right, Associate Professor Odolami, thank you for joining us. Yes, why is press freedom so important in the contemporary world today?
Thank you very much. As you know, that the most important of the rights of the human being is the freedom of expression. Your ability to hold opinion, seek it, impart it through appropriate media channels without frontiers, as it were. Information is the oxygen of democracy. The ideas that will propel society forward must be, interrogated in the public space, and the media actually champion, that's crucial assignment for society. And people must be free, to ventilate their views, opinion about how governance should be done, about how things are, handled in the society, as it were, such that the ideas that will lead to development themselves will also be a collective one. So, and the research has also shown that in developed countries in the world, there is a deep correlation between the extent of the freedom of the people, that is freedom of speech, then governance, of course, by freedom of the press, and development. Look at the fight against corruption, for instance. Most countries that have this transparency in terms of information sharing, knowledge sharing, transparency in governance and whatever, have the tendency to have low corruption, because we are all watching ourselves, and there is no secrecy in governance, and so on and so forth. So the idea of press freedom really is to give leverage to freedom of speech, and the two feed on each other. And it has become very crucial that if we want society to grow, the press must be given the leverage to function without any acrobacies.
Would you then say that the press have been given that enough freedom to exercise their responsibility?
No, the freedom is not enough, because there are a lot of factors that are still inhibiting the openness of public space, as it were. You will, for instance, you know that the very idea that has led to this celebration of the World Press Freedom Day is to continually, open the consciousness of society to these problems that are militating against the practice of journalism, and problems, that are emerging. Some of them are externally, derived. When I say externally derived, what I mean is that there are some legislative issues, so government pronouncements or actions that hinder, the unfettered operations of the media, as it were. Besides, there are other contending issues in terms of empowerment, in terms of media literacy. How much of information or knowledge does even the consumers of media content know for them to be able to interrogate issues that the media are bringing to the front burner? Besides, to the question of legislation, access to information. Access to information. It's one thing for you to say the media is free. It's another thing for the people to have that access, to quality, accurate information. Because, of course, knowledge is power. There is a great correlation between the success that somebody can record and the amount of information that is at his disposal. So the attention of the world now is to look as much as possible at eliminating those obstacles that hinder the press from operating maximally in their their ideal roles as the fourth estate of the realm, as it were.
Now, looking at our society, would you say, or do you believe that this absolute press freedom is ultimately possible?
Well, some people will tell you that absolute press freedom is not possible. And then, of course, we do know that with every freedom, there is a corresponding responsibility that is attached to it. But the fact remains that we must always strive at the ideal. And the ideal, I think it was one of the old-time American presidents said, if you are given the choice to choose between government without the media or vice versa, that you would prefer having a media without, these obstacles that we're talking about. The fight against corruption, for instance, if you look at it, we have in agencies like ICPC, FCC, or what have you. But the point is that if the press had been free all along in terms of accessing information, publishing, and offering perspectives that are professional without any strings attached, you discover that there are automatic mechanisms for society to grow without unnecessary duplicity of functions. Because if most of the activities of FCC, they are already embedded in the work of the press. If the press were actually free, if the people can go to the press and offer information, if we don't have problem in terms of accessing information from agencies or policymakers or whatever, and you don't have, this year now we're talking about journalism under siege, digital siege. We know now there are a lot of technological hindrances, that obstruct our operations as journalists. These days we have hacking being done, we have exposure of vital information. One of the principles that guide our activities as journalists is the fact that we must have this confidentiality of source. What we call the Shields law. We are under obligation to protect the identity of our informants. But today we have technology that have made all these things in public domain, and the privacy is no more guaranteed. And this is exactly why the theme of this year is anchored on that journalism on that digital siege.
Taking it from you that privacy is no more guaranteed, perhaps because of the advent of the social media to the traditional media we are used to, would you refer to the social media freedom as press freedom then?
Well, I have always had my own reservations about some of the things that happen in social media. The social media is just a derivative of the superhighway, the internet. That alone is just a platform. When we talk of press, we are talking of a disciplined institution, a disciplined institution of professionals, people who have gone through the mills to acquire the ethical and professional skills that are needed to process information. Information management is key. We know the rules, the rudiment, the editorial discretion of what determines what is consumable to the public in terms of our offerings. But anybody can adopt the social media for one purpose or the other. That does not make them journalists. So although we call them citizen journalists, but I rather call them users, the nature of content. So which distinguishes the men from the boys, really.
Now, looking at your practical and your classroom or perhaps theoretical experience over the years, would you say that Nigeria ranks amongst the Committee of Nations practicing press freedom?
No, we still have our challenges, although we are not also behind because we've made some improvements over time. However, there are still a lot of rooms for further advances, as it were, because the question of press freedom is not limited just to the physical factors alone. There are a lot of undercurrents. For instance, the question of media ownership is key. Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. And even when you talk of the owner playing overbearing roles in terms of censorship or what have you, the fact still remains that we also stand the risk as professionals to subject our rights and authority even to another oppressor somewhere. That is a commercial. Because if government is not pulling the strings in terms of ownership of media that are owned by it, that the private individuals to have a way of influencing the content of the media that they own. Now, leave that aside. If you practice the commercial model, in your struggle to get advert and funding, those organizations or agencies too that are giving you the chunk of your funds, also have a way of influencing your content too. So it's a question of you determining the balance. You have to have a template that ensures that public trust, because we are seeing journalism as a public trust. So public interest must be key. So while we are considering these other parameters, there must be a balance, and that is the major challenge of the professional.
Because you've talked about the ownership, is there a possibility of light at the end of the tunnel for Nigeria in this regard, ensuring that ownership does not ultimately silence the professional content?
Well, it's a global thing. It's not really, it's not limited to developing countries or Nigeria alone. Even in US, we still have the question of ownership playing prominent roles. But the fact is that we've got to increase and improve our temperament, to give people space. The idea is that when you have professionals taking control of the running and operations of media institutions, you can go to sleep. Give them their mandates. Your media station was established with a specific vision, so hand it over to the professional. They will now, within the context of established rules, ethics, and whatever, know how to balance the interests in such a way that the key, ingredient, the key goal, of journalism practice is not sacrificed for whatever proprietorship, interest, or inclination.
Before we leave you, journalism under digital siege, what is the danger in this for practitioners?
Yes, that was what I said earlier on in terms of all these emerging technologies that are now, exposing, the privacy of individuals. When you are working on stories now, as a journalist, you are under bond, to keep some information confidential. You may not even tell your colleague the source of your information, so long as the facts are accurate. But today you have technology that will keep all this in public domain, and hacking to, there are many times that your signals are jammed, for the meanness of reasons, for instance. So all these are the kind of things that the UNESCO, is really rallying attention towards, to make sure that we do not really shoot ourselves in the foot in terms of undermining this primary, rights of the individual, which is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, that's also governed by the freedom of the press.
A sincere appreciation, the head of Department, Mass Communication, Olabisi Onabanjo University, Associate Professor Dili Odolami, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Wale. It's been a nice time.
A fire incident has ravaged an office of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Zamfara State, situated in Karo-Namuda local government area. The fire reportedly started at about 8 p.m. on Monday night. When firefighters arrived at the scene to save the office, they reportedly could not put it off due to lack of water in their fire truck. And meanwhile, INEC authorities in the region and the national level are yet to issue an official statement regarding the incident. So far, there is no report of any casualty from the incident. Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwa of Sokoto State has commended President Muhammadu Buhari and the Nigerian Army for the establishment of an army barrack at the Isa local government area of the bandit-prone area of Sokoto State. According to the governor, with the establishment of the barrack at the area, the security challenges bedeviling the eastern flank of the state under the siege of marauders will be solved. He assured that in order to complement the efforts of the federal government, his administration will plow more resources to assist the personnel that will be deployed to the area. Earlier in his address, General Yahya said he was in the state for routine operation visit in order to evaluate the activities of the army in the northeast and northwest zones. He also said that he would perform a groundbreaking ceremony for the establishment of an army barrack, which the land was donated by the state government at Isa local government area. Still ahead, we'll bring you some business reports. Don't go away.
Welcome to the business segment of the news. Local investors continued their dominance in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NSE, in January, injecting 184.94 billion naira on equities during the month. This represents 79.56% of the total traded during the month and 11.98% year-on-year increase over 165.14 billion naira committed in January 2020. The NSE disclosed this in its data on domestic and foreign portfolio investors' participation in equities. Further analysis showed that domestic participation outstripped foreign investors' participation by 74.31% as foreign investors continued to withdraw funds from the market. More than 50 Nigerian manufacturing companies have shut down in the last 5 years, according to investigations. Some of the manufacturing companies that have exited the industry in the last 5 years include Surest Foam Limited, Mufex Farman Industries, MZM Continental, Nipol Industries, among others. Some of the manufacturers whose firms were shut down blamed the demise of the firms on the foreign exchange policies of the Nigerian government and the poor operating environment. Players in the manufacturing sector said that the number of shutdowns could be more than 50, considering the impact the foreign crunch had on manufacturers. The Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture has expressed fear that the federal government's food security policies may push the inflation rate to a record high 18.17% that was recorded in March 2021. It also said the federal government must, as a matter of urgency, avert another looming recession. The NASIMA president, Jesse Odeagbala, who stated this, said inflation measured on a year-on-year basis had grown from 15.63% as of December 2021 to 15.92% as of March 2022. He said headline inflation continues to be pushed by rising food prices. Udiabella noted that despite the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the decline in Nigeria economic growth, as shown by figures from the National Bureau of Statistics, called for concern. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries said insufficient investment in the oil sector had limited the capacity of Nigeria and other OPEC member nations to pump the volumes of crude oil approved by the organization. OPEC also revealed that in April 2022, Nigeria's oil production plunged by 40,000 barrels per day, translating to 1.2 million barrels during the review month. OPEC stated that its oil output in April undershot the rise that was planned under a deal with allies, as declines in Libya and Nigeria offset supply increases by Saudi Arabia and other top producers. The World Bank government and foundation partners have launched a new program to scale up quality, affordable childcare in developing countries. The bank said that the Global Child Care Incentive Fund will catalyze at least $180 million in new funding in the next 5 years to support childcare in low and middle income countries, providing wide returns for families, businesses and economies. The bank described the initiative as a critical investment to build the next generation of human capital and place women at the center of an inclusive global economic recovery. World Bank Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnerships, Maria Paragusta, said nearly 8 out of 10 children who need childcare live in low and middle income countries. And that was the business segment of the news. I hand you back to Wale for the rest of the bulletin. Thanks so much for watching.